I'm Mr. MegaManFan, and today on Genesis Does, you're getting two for the price of one. We're going to review a game and we're going to look at a controller. This is the 8BitDo M30 2.4G wireless controller for Sega Genesis Mini or Mega Drive Mini. It's also compatible with Nintendo Switch. I spent about $25 on it, free shipping with Amazon Prime. Might have been $24.99, might have even been a little less if it was on sale at the time, but around 25 bucks is the price I remember paying for it, and I've been saving it for this occasion. So as you can see, we've got the standard 8BitDo packaging, and I'm told that is the correct way to pronounce it. It's 8BitDo like Nintendo. It's kind of a pun, play on words if you will. So it's not 8BitDo, it's 8BitDo. And as you see, we have the charge cable in here in a plastic sheath, and it's the typical nice quality that you get with a controller cord for charging. A little bit short, but they had to make it smaller to fit inside of this compact box, so I'm not complaining too much. I do have enough USB bricks and enough extension cords that I can reach out to charge it. And as you can see, the controller itself has a little bit of a sparkly glossy finish, although it does have some plastic white dust on it from popping it out of the controller box. That's not actually part of the design. Thankfully, with just my thumb, I was able to brush that off, and it was on both sides, left and right, so I'm pretty confident that was just the plastic that the controller itself was held in. That plastic outline, just a little bit of the plastic wore off, but I don't see any other blemishes. There's a little sliver of plastic on the back that I didn't brush off while I was focusing on the label, but yeah, it's cosmetically fine. And inside you have instructions in both English and Chinese, but if you've used any of these 8BitDo products before, it won't be too much of a surprise. It will say, plug the USB dongle into your device, wait for it to light up, and then hit the button on your controller and they will pair together automatically. That's the reason that 8BitDo products are so popular. They work with relative ease compared to syncing up just about any other device you've ever had, especially Bluetooth controllers, which are notoriously hard to sync up and keep synced up, especially with computers. But when it comes to these 8BitDo controllers, they just work out of the box. The most you might ever have to do with one of these things is a firmware update if you want to use it on a device it wasn't originally meant for. Sometimes you could patch it with a firmware update. Had somebody ask me about that in the comments section the other day with an 8BitDo controller, and all I could tell him was, dude, you are using a PS5 controller with an 8BitDo receiver. I think the controller was not meant to work with that unless you update the firmware first. It just, don't expect universal compatibility out of the box. If you're trying something the product wasn't designed for, your mileage may vary. And in this case, he was trying to use a PlayStation 5 controller with the PlayStation Mini. Not necessarily going to work out well because the firmware was only meant for PS3 and PS4 controllers. Maybe they released a firmware update for it, maybe they didn't. That's their business. What's my business right now is playing Contra Hardcore, which really lives up to the name if you play the North American version. It is hardcore in a big way. You get insta-killed by any hit. Graze an enemy, you die. Take a bullet, you die. The Japanese version is much more forgiving, but let me show you the North American version first, just to give you a feel for how brutal this game can be. On the plus side, no matter how terribly I'm doing in this initial gameplay session, I'm doing it wirelessly. The controller is immediately responsive and functions just exactly as I would expect it to, only now I'm no longer tethered to the retrobit USB cord that came with my 6-button controller, which I bought because I wanted to play the 6-button games on the Genesis Mini, and the controller that comes packed in with the Genesis Mini only has 3 buttons. So in reality, I've actually bought 2 controllers for this Genesis Mini, so I could play 2-player games with the controller in port 2 and the wireless one in port 1, And that might be the preferred way to play Contra Hardcore anyway, because you could certainly use a friend helping you if you're playing the North American version, given how easy it is to get killed. You're going to just see me die over and over again. And I just kept dying each character I switched to. I tried Sheena, and I did marginally better with her. I tried the tiny little robot, and I did marginally better with that. But this game will punish you and punish you and punish you some more. If you're borderline sadomasochistic, play the North American version of Contra Hardcore without having memorized anything. Just play it cold. I'd like to see Awesome Games Done Quick or Summer Games Done Quick, somebody doing this blindfolded and playing it and not dying. I'm sure it's been done. I'm sure somebody like Ryan or Bjorn will link me to a video showing it being done. But that would be an impressive feat to watch, just because of the fact that this game has no forgiveness, or at least the North American version does not. The Japanese version should be patched into the North American version. Somebody needs to merge the two. Once again, I'm sure Ryan will point out that romhacking.net has done that, but the Japanese version gives you so much more grace. It allows you to take several hits before you die. You actually have a life bar, and you don't just die instantly. I've been given to understand over the years that Japanese game designers thought Americans sucked at games and usually made the games easier compared to their Japanese versions. But in this case, they did the exact opposite. They made it harder. That's unheard of, or at least goes against what I thought was the precedent of dumbing it down for us stupid Americans. No, they went far, far in the opposite direction. I'm sure there's a Konami Contra code that probably helps with this one, gives you 30 lives, up, down, left, right, BA start. But you know what? If you still die in one hit, you can still blow through 30 lives in no time flat. So what good would the Contra code do you in this case? So let's switch to the Mega Drive version, where things get a lot more tolerable right away. You're going to notice immediately that I do so much better. I actually cleared the first stage, even though I was on the verge of running out of extra lives and having to continue. I actually made it all the way to the end, so I was a little impressed with myself. It's so much easier when you can take one hit and not die immediately. You can actually adjust in the air and move around the shots instead of taking another hit, or you can jump over the bosses if they're coming back and forth, and you might take one hit while you're jumping, but you won't die instantly. You'll still have a couple of hits left. It makes such a world of difference. It's so dramatically different that I just can't fathom why they did it. I'm sure back in the 1990s, somebody working at Konami could have explained the reason why the Japanese version was easier than the North American version, but decades have gone by now, and that person no longer works there, or even if they still were working there, they probably wouldn't remember it 20 years later. This would have been a question that would have had to have been asked back then. And now we get to see how this game can actually be played when you don't die instantly every time anything touches you. I'm not saying I'm good, far from it, but I'm actually surviving and picking up weapon upgrades and making forward progress instead of just dying over and over again immediately. And when you don't die immediately, it actually reinforces your confidence. You actually start to perform better. I'm taking out these enemies without getting hit, and it feels natural and right. There's a balance achieved here. Honestly, if you've never played this game before and you buy a Genesis Mini, just play the Japanese version. Switch to the Japanese region in your system settings. You can switch back when you're through, but for Contra Hardcore, you definitely want to switch to the Japanese version for Mega Drive and play it this way. And if you're playing it in an emulator, download the Japanese ROM, or if the ROM is capable of just region detecting, which actually it may, then set your emulator to Japan and it'll boot up to the Japanese version and play it that way. I don't know if they made separate ROMs or it just detects the region of the console. Whichever the case is, man, it's night and day. It's almost not the same game. It's so much better. And it's so much better playing it with a wireless controller too. I don't know why that should be the case. Input lag should theoretically be a factor, but 8BitDo controllers, I never seem to notice the lag. And I'm sure somebody would say, well, you're going to introduce lag with a HDMI cord running to the TV as well, but I never seem to notice that either. I've heard people complain about sound delays on Genesis mini games, particularly with Castlevania Bloodlines, but I find it to be very minuscule compared to playing it on a real Genesis or my analog Mega SG. Now, I admit I'm a little sloppy in this section here because I'm not timing the jumps well from one spinning platform to the next, so I take deaths that I don't really need to take, but it doesn't stop me from getting to the end of the level and managing to beat the end level boss. So it looks bad at first, but it works out well in the end. And I always like that visual of Ray riding that beam, just following it all the way down and it skidding to a halt. Visually, Contra Hardcore is such an impressive game. Not just the multiple layers of animation, not just the parallax scrolling, not just the overall futuristic Contra look that we've come to expect from this series, but it flows in such an impressive way that you might be used to how Contra 3 or the original Contra look on Nintendo, and you might think, man, the color palette isn't going to be right on Genesis or Mega Drive, but it looks just the way you would want it to look. And the graphics are just as appealing as they are on Contra 3. It does not fail to impress. It is a great game, especially this particular version, the Japanese way to play it. Although if you're looking to buy the Japanese physical edition for an original Mega Drive, oh dear, your wallet's going to be hurting. $197 loose, $450 complete in box. And the North American version isn't exactly a bargain either at $50 loose and $120 complete. So you can essentially buy both a Genesis Mini and a Mega Drive Mini for less than the cost of a physical boxed version of this game, no matter which way you slice it, which I highly recommend you do. In fact, you can buy both versions and the 6-button controller from RetroBit and this wireless 8BitDo controller and still spend less money. It's amazing when you think about it that way, but I have to recommend Contra Hardcore. Despite the ridiculous price it measures as a standalone game, when you can buy the Genesis Mini and get 41 other games with it, the value is immense, because that's only going to set you back $60. And the controller, another $25. I recommend it. I think you'll have a lot of fun with it. And the 8BitDo controller gets a huge thumbs up for me. This is a great improvement upon playing it the way I was playing before. So I will be playing a lot more of my Genesis Mini now that I have this option available. I'm Mr. MegaManFan. This has been Genesis Does. And as always, thank you for watching. Like, share, comment. That helps the channel grow. The engagement is great. I like responding to the feedback as well, so keep it up. I appreciate all the comments that you guys leave, and I always appreciate new subscribers as well. So if you're just now joining the series for the first time, I do new videos every Thursday for Genesis Does, and I have new content every day. So hit that subscribe button, and you'll never miss out.